salary, security, schedule. I think that's what everybody's taking a look at in their career as a pilot.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
All right, I have another really cool interview episode today. I have with me Chris Clarke. Chris is a chief pilot from a major corporate aircraft management company. And today we are talking about the world of corporate aviation. We met in Palm Springs, California at the National Gay Pilots Association conference, and we hit it off and started talking about corporate. And I was just so interested in all the different things that he was talking about. I had no idea of. My whole life has been 121 flying, military flying, and that is all. And so this whole idea of corporate aviation is so interesting to me. So Chris, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, Nick, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So I want to start off as if kind of like how we started NGPA, right? Like, I don't know what you guys do. I don't know much about it. And I'm willing to tell you that I am ignorant of this. Help me understand it. And then let's just dive into it.
Great. Well, I'll just give you a little bit of background for myself, because I think that'll help lead in, because at some point I made that decision to go corporate versus 121, as you are. So, got a ride in an airplane at an early age. Got the bug and never looked back. Had a traditional flight instructor build up your flight time, get your first charter type job, flying freight at nighttime, which back then was a great opportunity back in the late 70s. Able to build up 1,000 hours a year, multi-engine time, single pilot. That was great. Walked me into, back then, our charter type of an aircraft du jour was a Learjet. Transitioned over doing some Learjet charter for a couple of years, and that afforded me the opportunity to go to work for a major pharmaceutical company, whereas I spent 30 years with them. Transitioned over to my current position, as you said, as a major management company, operating about 250 aircraft, about 600 pilots around the United States, an additional 100 around the world. And that's where I've been for the last 12 years. I've been fortunate. I've had 2 major jobs in the last 42 years. So that's been great. So that's me and the industry. I think we serve a wider range of individuals. It could be a 2-pilot King Air type account, turboprop, to a multi-aircraft flight department. And that's the world that we live in and in between it. Most of those we operate under FAR Part 91. Some of those, for various reasons, will elect to do 135 for either tax purposes internally, or to actually put a little bit of retail to offset the cost of their aircraft. So it's a wide range out there of what we do and how we do it. But the common denominator is we're flying airplanes.
Yeah. So you're flying these airplanes. You're flying, you said King Airs and various different, maybe a 2-person jet, but smaller equipment, but you're usually flying for like high net worth individuals, right? And people that contact your company to manage their aircraft. Is that typically how it goes?
Yeah, Nick, that's exactly right. So again, that's the range of it. So it could be a high net worth individual. What we are able to do is provide services, meaning turnkey. We'll crew it, we'll fix them, we'll maintain them, we'll buy them, we'll sell them, clean them. And for that, we charge a management fee in addition to the operating costs, which is a direct pass-through. So it's either a high net worth individual, or it could be a major corporation that, again, it's a world that they may not be fluent in. They're obviously very successful people or companies, but there's something about aviation that is a little different. So they rely on people that's what they do full time. And that's what we do.
Yeah, that makes sense. If somebody aviation's a niche market, right? So if you have a person that is internet famous, or like some TikToker has no idea, or Warren Buffett or whoever, like they don't care about managing aircraft and making sure aircraft maintenance happens on time and making sure airplanes are crewed and all that. They just want to walk up to a jet and go fly and get you to take them where they need to go. Is that kind of the idea behind the turnkey solution at a corporate gig?
Correct. Yeah. And there's some companies out there that there's several Fortune 100 companies feel confident and fluent in that environment. They've been doing it for a while. As I said, I work for Big Pharma. We had a flight department for 50, 60 years. We flew Twin Beaches and DC-3s. But at some point, we not only provide walking them through this, also that business conversation, that scale of efficiencies. We can buy fuel for 250 airplanes. We can insure 250 airplanes. We can train and secure training contracts for 250 for 600 pilots. So there's that scale of efficiencies that we can provide to either that high net worth individual or that corporation. And more importantly, what we do also provide is some integrity and oversight. I'm not saying these standalone operations aren't doing a good job. They are. But we have the ability to have a lot of people looking at a lot of things. And out of that, you will get some additional integrity, not to mention those scale of efficiencies. You'll get that oversight. I got a boss. He's got a boss. Nobody's going to do anything incredibly stupid. That kind of oversight.
I would. Don't worry. It would be me. Don't worry.
Well, you wouldn't do it intentionally, I don't think.
I hope not.
Yeah.
But I do okay, so to your point, the idea of a standardization of safety across a wider spectrum, right? And having I can imagine similar to the military, how there is a department for operations, there's a department for maintenance, there's a department for pilots and for safety and all those things. And so all of them work together to dance into this beautiful dance to get the aircraft up and out on time, but also to maintain the qualifications and standards in your crews as well, and the people that do the work for you. So, all right, the person right now that is listening to this podcast is a pilot who's working their way through all the different training, and they are seeing that there's a big pilot shortage, and they're seeing major airlines hiring, and they hear about corporate aviation. They've heard of FlexJet and NetJets and all the different carriers. So I want to talk to that pilot about corporate aviation and why this is a great choice for a career. Why is that?
Yeah, good. So there's a couple of reasons why. And one word is lifestyle. I've taken a look at both of it. And, some of my children are involved in the 121 world. They're out there flying the line. It really comes down to a lifestyle. The compensation, if we were to marry this up against average career of 35 or 40 years, we're probably most likely, depending on what carrier you went for or what corporation you work for, you're probably going to end up close to the same spot financially. But what's going to distinguish it is the lifestyle. And there's several qualities that translates to. I call it the 3 S's, your salary, security, schedule. I think that's what everybody's taking a look at in their career as a pilot. So when you break that down into corporate aviation or business aviation versus commercial aviation 121 operations, it's a personal choice. In your 121 environment, you're a number, and that's what you are. Your base is determined by that, the route, the aircraft in which you fly, and ultimately your compensation is going to be based on that. Whereas in our world of business aviation, it's going to be more driven by the customer and the type of equipment that you operate, the region in which you live, and the industry or the sector in which you support. Those are the distinguishing factors. So if we were to whittle down corporate aviation or business aviation to, let's say, Fortune 100, let's say the top 50 percentile that's out there, because, again, you have some companies that are operating a light aircraft or turboprop that maybe that's not where you want to be over the long term. So I would say lifestyle. I've had the privilege and the opportunity to fly all over the world, to see things that a lot of people would never see. And to do that, quite frankly, working for a Fortune 50 company, you're not staying at the Days Inn. You're probably staying at a high-end hotel. You're going to a pretty neat place. You're getting to share that experience sometimes with your passengers or the principal. So that's a little different than kind of doing a bag drag and a 36-hour turn at Beijing and coming back home again. So it's personal preference.
Yeah, oh my God. Okay, give me a specific story. Like, sell me on that. Give me a cool story from a trip.
Oh, wow. I've had a lot of them. Like I said, working for Big Pharma, we had the opportunity to go all over the world and stay at some really good places, whether it going into Kathmandu or doing a raft trip down the Rangoon in Burma or going out to Iguazu Falls. That's unique. Again, Fortune 100 company, they're going to go neat places. They're going to do some really nice things. So I'm not bragging, but I've been privileged to see the world on somebody else's nickel and do it in a really nice way.
I want you to brag this entire episode because that is like corporate aviation. I love your 3 S's first off, salary, security, and schedule. But like the cool part is we were talking in the pre-show, right? Being in corporate aviation is kind of like dancing around the fact that you work for the CIA because you can't talk about the people that you're working for, right? If you fly for Bill Gates or George Lucas or pick the person or, even somebody that's massively wealthy that you may not even know about, or you work for some large company like the pharmaceutical organization that you work for, they value people that are reserved and demure about that part of the job. They don't want somebody like me that's going to be like, me and Tom Brady went out and we flew to Pensacola and went to McGuire's and had Irish wakes all night long. Like that's not going to be looked upon. So you have to have some level of decorum with that lifestyle. I think that the lifestyle also comes back to the schedule part too, right? Like, is there more flexibility or time that you can manage your schedule?
Yeah, it's kind of a binge purge. It's not the misconception that our bag is packed and we're hanging on to the phone to ring. That's not the case. My responsibility as a hiring manager is to get good people and keep good people. How that translates to everybody is a little different, but schedule time off, a competitive comp package, security is really important for them. So I think those are the important qualities that we have to get good people and keep good people. So the average workload, and it's tough to put a number on it, we try to track. NBAA, the National Business Aircraft Association, tracks some of the metrics. I used to say kind of in an unscientific way, it was time to hire. Somebody came in my office and jumped up and down on my desk that they missed too many birthdays. We're a little bit more scientific than that. We not only compare ourselves to our peer group, but we take a look at those thresholds that we start to hit when people start to jump up and down on your desk. And it depends on it. There's several factors go into it. One is the workload, the level of productivity. We start doing 13, 15 days a month, which may sound like, hey, where do you sign up for that kind of job? But when you combine that with the level of being of the dynamic nature that you may not know those 13 to 15 days more than 5 days out or more than a week out. So there's a little bit of nature of uncertainty. So I always say the flexibility is proportionate to the level of productivity, meaning if you're working 6 days a month, it probably behooves you to answer your phone and go to work on Christmas Day. But again, that comes into the lifestyle. Does that suit the individual and their family? Are they okay? I raised 3 boys. 2 of them are in the industry in some way or another. Yeah, I missed a lot of Christmases. I missed a couple of birthdays. But that's the bad news.
Yeah.
The good news is I've been around a lot to raise kids and do that. So again, it's back to the lifestyle. What serves that individual best?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just listening to the 21.5 podcast, which I talk about a lot. Episode 94 has this guy named Dr. Chris Broyhill, who's a statistician who helps create those salary surveys. It is really interesting hearing the corporate side of the house on how you manage and all of that. And as you see companies that are like 121 operators providing, like putting a bigger and bigger carrot at the end of the stick, it is that lifestyle that's going to satisfy and draw the people into the corporate realm. Now, as people, like, is this a job for a low-time pilot? Is this a job for a high-time pilot? How do you get into this field of corporate aviation?
Yeah, that's one of the nuances also. The entry level, and depending on most of the management companies and their customers want 2 captains, 2 fully qualified pilots. And so as a result of that, we're driven by the insurance requirements for time and type or time. So we find, and this is a challenge for us, is that we're not able to recruit on that lower level. We are starting to look more and more into this co-captain, co-pilot, as long as there's not an impact of scheduling. So from a qualification point of view, my criteria right now is for an SIC is 2,500 hours. For PIC is 3,500 hours. That's pretty high. We could waive that, but again, we're driven by the insurance requirements, the premiums in which they write for us, or going under the assumption that those are the qualifications we're going to have. So that's a tough part of breaking into business aviation. Getting to that 2,500 versus a 121, you hit 1,475, you're sitting in a classroom, that next day. Ours is a little different.
Okay, if you need an extra 1,000 hours before I can sit and interview with you, how are you finding those people that are interested in pulling back from, are they like, hey, I've been at the regionals for 3 years and I'm over it and I want to go do something different? Is that the kind of person that's coming through?
Yeah, I think that's one of the markets. The fractionals also are a little bit more open. Those fractional shares are a little more open to the co-pilot. So we'll find that, yes, we'll get some of those that are at a juncture where they've gotten to the 2,500s either through a regional airline or through a fractional, and they've made a decision that maybe they don't want to do the 121 thing. Maybe, or they tried it for a year and it didn't work out for whatever reasons why, and they want to take a look at corporate aviation, business aviation, and it suits them and their family a little better. So that is our labor pool for the low-time pilots, either somebody out of regionals, somebody out of fractionals, or somebody that's had the opportunity to fly freight at nighttime and to build up that, or military. We see a lot of the military guys come out with that maybe 2,000, 2,500 hours, and they've got $1 million education there, and they want to pursue the corporate aviation because they've got a friend that's involved in it, or they just think it's a better route for them.
Yeah. Now, once people are in to the corporate aviation, is there typically a lot of staying power there, or is it kind of like I don't want to say revolving door, but is there a lot of turnover?
I wouldn't call it turnover, driven so much by that. And, I say we change jobs for 3 reasons. Professional trajectory, something that's going to serve us better, either type aircraft or the operating arena, which we want to be in, compensation, or lifestyle. It just suits you better. So those are why I see people jump ship. As to the industry itself, I won't tell you for a moment, and this is the beauty of a managed account, a company that manages aircraft. The life expectancy on an account is probably that of your kitchen appliance. It's about 5 years. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just we have a very cyclical nature in aviation that's driven by the economy. That your cycle may be a little longer. Maybe in the 121 world, it's 10 years. I don't know. I'm not a finance guy. So that's what drives it. And the beauty of a managed account, the bigger accounts like the one that I work for, is that we have 600 pilots. We're going to find them another account. So I often say, this may not be your last account, but I can tell you, it's going to be your last job. You will continue to work for us and you will retire. And there's no reason why you won't if you've been doing your job. If you haven't been, then that's a different conversation.
Yeah. So before I started flying professionally, I worked for a consulting company in DC. And when the contract ended, most everybody was cut loose. And it was just a vicious cycle. And so that, it's hard to have peace of mind with a family to know that you're going to be able to provide for them when there is that kind of threat. So knowing that, hey man, there's another good job right around the corner, that definitely can give you that peace of mind that you can sleep at night and just not live in complete and utter anxiety.
Yeah. And I think targeting the right companies, I would say for anybody that's going to pursue the business aviation, target good companies, management companies that have the numbers out there, have the aircraft, they are sustainable, or go to work for a Fortune 100 company where you know that they're not going to go away. I mean, there's no guarantee. We've seen the GEs of the world, the mothership close their flight department down, unheard of, established legacy departments. But I'm not saying we're all immune to the casualties. They're out there like everybody else. But you'll add a lot of integrity if you target those Fortune 100 companies that have been out there for a while. They're going to stay in contemporary type aircraft. They're going to purchase probably a new airplane every 5 years just because they're driven by warranties and maintenance and that sort of stuff. So you know you're going to be in a contemporary aircraft. You know you're going to be at the top of the food chain as good as you're going to be. And this is not to say flying a King Air with 2 pilots out of Montana is not a good job. Again, that's a personal preference there. But if you're looking for the greatest amount of integrity in business aviation, I think those would be the 2 paths in which you could pursue.
Yeah. And you bring up such a good point about the ability or the importance of looking at the bigger picture and not just thinking about who's the first person that can offer you a job, but what is the opportunity with this organization? Are they somebody that is established and somebody that I can hang my hat with general certainty that it will be something that I can spend a career doing? My grandfather spent 30 years at GE, and he'd be rolling over just seeing how it has completely collapsed. So I that was the first thing I thought of when you said an enduring flight department. I was like, yeah, like GE. Oh my gosh. Man, Chris, I really appreciate this conversation. I just think that you have so much value that you have given us because there are so many different avenues. We can go down a lot of different paths in professional aviation, but unless we know about it, it's a scary thing. And for me, when I was going through, it was like airlines or nothing. And that's the only thing. So you offer really great perspective. And that's what I want to do with this podcast is give perspective and let people know that they can do things that make them happy and they don't have to follow the masses. So thank you for that. And thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Thank you, Nick, so much. It was a pleasure to be on.
Hey, before you jump out of here and go on to the next podcast, can I ask a big favor? Would you mind going over to your app that you're listening to this podcast on and give me a review? Give me a 5-star review if you love it. Give me a 1-star review if it totally sucks. Put a comment in there, something that is helpful. It helps me. It helps get the word out there. It helps people find the podcast, and that's super cool. If you don't do that, maybe you could just share the podcast with a friend. Tell a buddy who's trying to figure it out, trying to sort out this pilot dream of theirs and get a little bit further. That is super awesome as well. Last, if you don't do either of those 2 things, how about this? Find a way today to make yourself 1% better. Do that thing that you've been putting off. Put your foot forward, make movement, get yourself going, get that inertia that you need to succeed in this industry. So that's your choice. Leave a review, tell a friend, or make yourself better. Either way, it's all a good choice. And I'm super stoked you're listening, and I will see you on the next episode. The statements made on this show are my own opinions and do not reflect, nor are they under any direction from my employer.